more.
Alrighty. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're all comfortable to enjoy our new Netflix original, Netflix from DVDs to Dollars. I'm James. I'm here with Ariane, Christian, Clark, and Alyssa. We are Team Jack. Let's sign in and get started. Today we'll be exploring 5 accounts, starting with a brief introduction of Netflix as a company, then moving to an internal and external analysis. From there, we'll take a look at Netflix's current international strategy. We'll end by exploring 2 main issues that Netflix is facing currently, as well as exploring strategies and tactics that Netflix can use in the future to address these issues and maintain their position as a leader in the global entertainment industry. Here's a brief introduction of Netflix as a company. As you can tell, we've gone through some changes over the years. We started out selling DVDs, then we revolutionized the way people watch TV shows and movies through streaming. Now, we are the global leader in producing award-winning original content. To understand more about what we're doing right now, I'm going to pass it off to Christian to start the internal and external analysis.
Right, thank you, James. So the first thing we're going to talk about is tangible resources. Obviously, the first one, licenses that Netflix has to produce their shows in different countries throughout the world. Properties, their headquarters, is located in California. So that's obviously a tangible resource that they have. IT equipment, the computers, all those things that they use to do their productions. Patents and trademarks they have for their original shows to produce those. They're the sole rights holders of those kind of things. Cash, production equipment that they use to create their Netflix originals. That's all something they have recently acquired and have been starting to do. And then obviously they actually still have DVDs that they send out that people can buy online. It's not just still streaming. Moving on to intangible resources, one of the biggest things Netflix has is their brand reputation. Everybody around the world knows what Netflix is, what they do, because of their streaming platform. Next is idea generation. It's a very intangible resource that they have. You know, everybody saw the Bird Box movie. That being able to do those kind of ideas and things went viral because of it helps their brand be able to kind of expand and reach different places that they might not be able to be. The last one, which is probably the most important, is their software. Their software is unique to Netflix. They have patents on it that other companies cannot use, and it's really a bargaining chip for them when they go to produce these shows and these kind of different things because the software is very unique to them that nobody else has. Moving on to capabilities based on those resources. First one is obviously a digital streaming service. We see this as something that's not necessarily a core competency because of the market now. It's very widely available with Hulu, Amazon Prime Video, all those different things. Makes it not rare and makes it very substitutable. Moving on, design and production skills. Because of Netflix originals, this is something that Netflix has been able to produce that other kind of services haven't, which makes it a core competency for them and keeps bringing in customers. And then kind of combining the last 3, the data analysis, marketing campaigns, and partnerships are kind of something that we felt that Netflix does a very good job of that helps them keep their growth and subscribers. Moving on to a business level strategy, I wanted to give you an idea of where kind of Netflix falls within their business level. First, we're going to look at some competitors: Hulu, Amazon, YouTube, ESPN, and Twitch. Hulu is obviously a lower price subscription than Netflix is, but it's still kind of looking for that broad audience. They're just kind of a low cost. Amazon fits in the same quadrant as Netflix, but Netflix is, in our opinion, more unique on that far side because of their original content. Amazon Prime actually has original content, but it's not near the amount or the quality that Netflix has. So because of those competitions, and you also have things that are a little different like Twitch and ESPN Plus that kind of look for either a sports or a streaming kind of content that are more in that narrow area. So Netflix fits up right in that right quadrant. And now I'm going to pass the external analysis on to Ariane.
Okay, so we're going to move through the 5 courses. Here you can see that supplier power for Netflix is kind of low. That's just because pretty much all their competitors offer the same concept of streaming. Barriers to entry is also kind of low. That's just because the cost of technology isn't super high as it is in other industries. Competitive rivalry is kind of medium just because their competitors, there's a lot of them, but they're doing better than all of them, so it's okay. And then buyer power and threat of substitution are high, and that's because there are so many that, like Hulu and Amazon, that they have streaming and they can correspond with each other.
All right, so when we're talking about market share, Netflix is in this unique category of online streaming. So as we're looking at that, Netflix actually holds 40% of the total market of online streaming video services and kind of this realm of YouTube, Hulu, and Amazon. And as we look at those, YouTube at 18, Hulu at 14, Amazon at 7, and all others at 21. So the battle is not only being fought on the online streaming front, but also on the screen time front. And that's kind of hard to put in monetary terms. It's time spent in front of a screen rather than money actually being spent because there's no further charge for the subscription. So as we look at some of our competitors and where they lie in terms of market commonality and resource similarity, we got YouTube being high in resource similarity and low in market commonality. Amazon Prime Video being kind of up in that top right. Hulu there, and this one's actually kind of interesting. So as we're talking about screen time, our CEO Reed Hastings said that our biggest competitor is actually Fortnite. So as we're looking at online streaming and stuff, we have to actually start considering what that actually looks like and what we're competing for. Is it just dollars or is it time spent in front of the TV? So this brings us to our drivers of competitive action. We have awareness, motivation, and ability. So as you can see, as we did our analysis of Netflix, we didn't actually find Hulu to be that high of a competitor in terms of our drivers of competitive action. We actually found them towards the bottom, with Hulu and Amazon being towards the top. But once again, that comes into play is, what are we talking about? Are we talking about screen time, or are we talking about the actual online streaming market? So that's something that moving forward is going to look a little different as we move throughout the years.
Next, we're going to take a look at the two markets that Netflix mainly operates in. The first is the streaming technology market. This follows a fast cycle style of market as new streaming technology comes out quickly and disperses quickly throughout the technological market. The next market is the content production market. This follows more of a standard cycle. It's a little bit harder to predict what's going to happen, and the cycle is a little bit longer. So as originals and content need to be continually updated, you are protected from some competition in the form of licensing and proprietary rights. And also it takes multiple years to produce a TV show or movie from conception to final release. And Alyssa's going to talk about acquisitions, mergers, and partnerships.
So when looking at acquisitions, this was actually very prevalent in Netflix early history. So they started out as a DVD rental service, and they actually were a big disruptor in the DVD rental service industry because they turned it from a product industry into a service industry by charging customers by subscription rather than by product base. So early on when they were about worth $50 million, they asked to be acquired by a company, Blockbuster. And Blockbuster at that time did not see them as a threat or even really relevant to what they were doing. So they passed on acquiring Netflix. And so, and as many of you guys are aware, Blockbuster is no longer around, and Netflix is now worth $152.7 billion. So big miss out by Blockbuster there. So looking at Netflix as a business and what they are doing, currently they are a single business made up of two parts. So over 95% of their revenue is coming from their streaming service. But as we mentioned before, they also still have their DVD.com, which is their DVD rental service industry. And over less than 5% of their revenue is coming from that. But it's still a big part of what they do, and it still makes a good amount of revenue. And so looking at Netflix current acquisitions, for a long time in its history, Netflix did not have any acquisitions. It didn't make its first acquisition until August of 2017, and that one is Miller World. And that is a comic book company that they acquired. And this was a related acquisition because although it's not part of their supply chain, it's very relevant to what they do, and I'll explain more about why that's important for them. And then their latest acquisition was of ABQ Studios, which is their new production site in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And this was acquired in October of 2018. And this was a vertical acquisition because production is part of their supply chain, and it'll allow them, it has many benefits that I'll go into in a little bit. So looking at Millarworld and why it's important for Netflix and why it was a win for Netflix to get this, the actual owner of Millarworld, previous to Netflix, was a creator of iconic stories and characters such as Kick-Ass, The Kingsman, and Old Man Logan. And then this gives Netflix also access to new ideas to create their content, especially as competitors such as Disney's Marvel are being removed from Netflix. They're able to still be competitive in that industry and create new content to replace, especially in the superhero type of content. It gives them ideas to replace that type of content. And this will decrease the impact of those competitors moving their stuff off of Netflix. So then looking at ABQ Studios, how this helps Netflix. So just being in Albuquerque alone, Netflix stands to gain, is getting $14.5 billion in government funding as well as tax breaks. So they're just for helping the economy of Albuquerque. And then this also allows Netflix to streamline their process in the production and create original content and not having to go through a third party and waiting for production sites to be there. And once again, this allows them to continue to create original content that's going to be so crucial for them to create in the future. And now I'll pass it on to Ariane for international strategy.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some of the opportunities and outcomes of their international strategy. Here you can see that they are in 190 countries this far. We're going to walk through this chart that shows us how they use their international strategy, starting with identifying international opportunities. So their first opportunity is increased market size. They can do this with extended product life cycles and gaining access into consumers in emerging markets. So with their first opportunity, they move into new markets and can move their original content over there. Their second opportunity gives them economies of scale and learning. It gives them the opportunity to integrate into global operations on a global scale and to better integrate streaming technologies. Exploring their resources and capabilities, they have a transnational strategy. Here you can see that they have a high need for global integration. That's just because they use the same streaming services no matter what country they go into, but they also have a high need for local responsiveness. That's just because they use special content across the globe. So they have transnational strategy. They use a licensing for their core competencies because it's low cost, low risk, little control, and low returns for them. So next, James will talk about some of the risks.
There are two main risks that Netflix faces when going international: political and economic. Political risk involves differences in regulations from country to country. The best example of this is the Chinese market. Netflix can't enter the Chinese market due to governmental regulations, and that is a big missed opportunity because China is one of the largest markets in the world. In terms of economic risk, this involves investing a lot of time, energy, and money into going into a new country, developing original content, licensing content for that country, and failing to grow a substantial subscriber base within that country. The best example of this is the Indian market, another very large market in the world, but Netflix is losing out to the local company Hotstar, which is able to produce similar content at lower prices, and Netflix just can't compete on that level. These international strategies lead to the competitive outcome of enhanced innovation. This touches on what we mentioned earlier. With going international, Netflix can increase the amount of content they have in general as they are producing content for different countries across the globe. It also spreads out production costs across a larger subscriber base, and by going into more locations, it gives them more innovation, more ideas, and more subscribers in general. Are you guys still watching? Is this an interesting show for you? Ariane, why don't you see if you can search and find anything new?
Yeah, so let's search for some issues. So the first issue that we found was saturation of domestic market. So that just means there's a lot of competitors in this market, like Hulu and Amazon, like we mentioned before. Another issue that we found was increased competition for screen time. So not only is Hulu and Amazon a problem, but things like Twitch and other gaming systems. Loss of network content, like mentioned before, Disney is taking away a lot of their content and other providers are coming in with streaming services. And then low corporate level diversification. So we only have DVDs and streaming technology. These are the two issues that we plan on focusing on, and Alyssa's going to take away issue 1.
Thank you, Ariane. So looking, like Ariane said, the first issue we're going to focus on is loss of our network content. So as you can see, the streaming industry is getting very saturated, and it's only going to get even more saturated with newcomers coming in. So right now, Warner Media is already in the market, but DC and Criterion are going to be added to their package, and which is going to make them even more of a threat. Apple is going to be free to all iOS users, so that's going to be also make them a big competitor of ours as well. And then, as you guys are well aware, Disney Plus is coming out with their streaming service this year and also removing their content from Netflix. So with this being said, Netflix is going to have to continue to produce that original content and find other ways to differentiate themselves from their competition. And so this is just a graph that shows the viewership of different types of content currently on Netflix and how that is a production of how much the viewership is accounting for. So if you look at this yellow line, this is Disney's content. So as you can see, it ranges from about 10 to 12% throughout the year. And then total Fox, it started about 25% and it fell to 10%. And this can account for some of the content already being removed from Netflix. And that can account for that decline right there. And then you have the Marvel, which is Netflix Originals Marvel content, which averaged under 5% in the last year. And then lastly, this is very good for Netflix. It started out with their original content under 15%, but ended the year almost 30%. And this is something Netflix is going to have to continue to do if they want their viewers to watch their content and making sure that they continue to produce content that their viewers are interested in and maintain that screen time as more content is taken off. And this was all found by 7 Park, and this is, with Netflix being so confidential about their viewership because it comes from their patented technology of software, this is only accounting for viewership on a desktop and not mobile devices or TV streaming. So that's just something to keep in mind, but it gives you a picture of where the viewership is at right now. So then these are just some of the top 10 pieces of content that were ranked last year. And as you can see, there's a combination of Netflix originals as well as licensed content. So as competition continuously takes content away from Netflix, it's going to be, you can see that in general takes away a lot of our content that's currently on Netflix. So it's going to make it even more important, like I've been saying, to continue to produce more content to replace that. And even this Netflix exclusive Daredevil is being taken off when Disney opens their streaming service because it is Marvel associated. So as you can see, there's an issue there. So I'm going to hand it over to Clark, and we're going to talk about what we came up with to solve this.
Awesome. So when we were looking at these issues, we wanted to lay out a little chart for you guys here to actually see where our mindset was. So first and foremost, what's our goal in this? What's our goal? What do we want to do? We obviously want to maintain subscriber growth. So the chart we have here is going to show you the subscriber growth in the US, Europe, and China in the year 2018, and then what they're projecting for 2023. Now, as you can see, it's about 6% in the US, 18% in Europe, and about 12% in China. That's going to show us, though, that even though it's an incremental change, this is a growing industry. So we're going to gain more subscribers as video streaming users increase. So second, what's our strategy? We want to expand and advance on our original content production. So as you can see here, Netflix currently has the most and is projected to continue to have the most by a landslide of their own original content. So as they continue to produce, they continue to move forward, we're able to kind of meet that strategy. But how are we going to do this? We want to focus on our tactic 2, adding live sports and news to our offerings. So this is our current homepage that we have right now. And upon adding live sports and news, we'd be able to put 2 little tabs at the top there for you. And then we click on sports and we go straight into it. So when we're talking about live sports, we wanted to talk with, see if there was any rankings out there for who has the best live streaming sports. And the best experience came out to be YouTube. This study was done through Sports Illustrated. They said YouTube TV has the best live sports streaming experience on the market today. Best value was actually Sling Television, which is more of your basic cable package, but it is a streaming service technically because it's not done through a cable box or a cable company. And then you can see the honorable mentions there below. So as you can see, Netflix isn't on this list because we don't currently have live sports, but we would hope to be in this conversation when we do introduce it. So live sports, what does that mean? We have to talk about TV deals, right? We have to look at what those look like on a global scale and what they look like domestically. So here you can see the top 10 TV deals from 2017 to 2018. This was found by Statista. and the NFL dominates the market. They have the deals with NBC, ESPN, Fox, all of those. So really what we wanted to get across is this is a large pie here, and it's hard for us to get a piece of that without having a different strategy than a lot of other companies have used. So what are we going to do? We're going to look at the international market. So these were some of the leagues that we discussed looking at and going into. As you can see, cricket, the second tier in in English soccer, Super Rugby, the Australian Football League, and Elite Syrian, which is the number one league in Norway. So we broke these down and put their TV deals here as well. As you can see, it's a little skewed. Some of the countries that don't have as big of exposure have smaller TV deals. This was done by ourselves, Team Jack. So here we're going to break it down. So we wanted to highlight 3 main leagues that we felt like had the most opportunity. And first, we wanted to look at Elite Syrian. The main reason we wanted to look at this, Norway actually is our second largest country as far as subscribers go. So it would be a really easy way for us to market that by adding that to our list of possible outcomes. And with soccer being their number one sport, we chose the number one league they have, and they actually have a pretty small TV deal, so it would be easy for us to kind of overtake that. That TV deal would expire in 2022, and it's with Discovery Sports Norway. Second, we wanted to look at the Indian Premier League for cricket. Cricket being the largest sport in India, and India being the second largest country in the world, we felt like this was an easy market for us to kind of target and look at. And as far as their actual, there are 31 million people of Indian descent living outside of India. So that's really what we're targeting there, is trying to cash into that market where it's not just a domestic stream, it's international. So that's kind of where our heads were at. So as you can see, they have a $2.5 billion contract, but it's only regionally. And as far as the Elite Syrian was concerned, it's only domestically. So all of these streams that they currently have, all their deals are only for they're in their own country or the only region in the world. So we want to take this international for them, and we feel like we can do that. And lastly, the Australian Football League. So that's about a $2.5 billion contract expiring in 2022 with Channel 7, Foxtel, and Telstra. That is also domestic and only in Australia. So that's another way for us to kind of expand on that, take it international. They're our 7th largest country in subscribers, and it's their number one revenue generating sport in the country. So, recommended for you to watch next, where's the money? What are we doing? How are we making money on this, right? So, we want to introduce a sponsorship system. So this would be our basic level sponsorship. It's called our banner sponsor. You would get your name on a final thank you page at the end of the stream. It would say thank you to our sponsors. You get a little icon there. You could click it, go to their website, however you'd like to do that. And then also include a rolling banner at the bottom. Now this is a special case because it would only be available in our dual viewing system, which we will mock up for you here in a minute. But as you're watching the stream itself, it wouldn't come on unless you're in the dual viewing capability. So we expect this to be about 50% of our overall sales, at least in the first year, and we're going to charge about $2,000 for that package. Now, our secondary sponsor, we're going to say that for 3 timeouts or 3 ad breaks, you'll get a little ad put up that's like this. You'll get 3 of those during the game. You'll get your name on the final thank you page, and you'll get a spot in the rolling banner as well. This is going to be about 30% of our overall sales, and we're going to charge about $7,000 for that. Lastly, we have our primary sponsor. This one will be our title sponsor for the stream. So before the game, it'll say this video is brought to you by Netflix or whoever it may be. And at the end, you'll also have a closing ad that would look very similar to this. Now, you would also get 2 30-second timeouts during the game, your name on the final thank you page, and a spot in our rolling banner as well. We projected this to be about 20% of our overall sales and charging about $10,000 for that. So we're going to break you down into what kind of the finances look like. As far as our initial investment, the research and development just to take our current software and turn it into a live streaming software would be about $30,000. Our international development is focused on hiring people or hiring one person kind of in charge of understanding the international law and how we can kind of get involved in those international markets. And so that brings our total R&D investment to be about $105,000. Our total expenses when looking at the licensing, the way we came up with this is we actually said we're going to go in and we're going to pitch on top of the current deal they have just to syndicate that stream internationally. So we suggested that be about 10% of the previous deal. So we said, for Elite Syrian, it'd be about 27.8 million for the 6 years, and your annual expense out on the side. And after going through all of that, got to 88.8 million as far as our licensing expenses. Now, that brings our total expenses to 88.9 million. Now, when we're looking at revenue, how did we come up with how we're actually going to make money off of this? We took the matches per year in each league, found out how many timeouts, how many breaks they have during those games. And for the IPL, it's a little different because it depends on style, and most of those are played a little differently. But for the most part, we averaged them out. And then we came up with how many ad slots we'd actually have available per game. So our total slots would be about 31,000 at a fill rate of about 50%, bringing us our own ads in as well as some commentary time, put us at about 15,000 ad spots. So once we multiply those by the percentages we just presented, as well as our purchase price, we came out to a total revenue in the first year of 79.6 million. Our total expenses at about 88.9, and our total profit is actually at negative 9.2 for the first year. Now, with this being said, moving forward, we obviously would expand into different leagues, and in our 5th year would actually up our price per package as we renegotiate those contracts, bringing us in 2027 a total revenue of about 112.4, with our total expenses being nearly the same, and our total profit then in 2027 would be 23.5. Now that's a 5-year projection, just so we can see kind of how that looks moving forward and how that money's actually coming back to us in the end. And now we're going to take a look at what that would look like. So we'd have the current offerings, the daily offerings available, so what games are going on live, but we'd also offer the playback, as we can archive those games and actually present them to you later on. Now this is our dual viewing screen. As you can see, we have our banner ads at the bottom, and that's what I was referencing earlier, saying that we'd mock it up later for you. This is what it looks like. So we're actually going to be able to do this so that you can watch multiple games at once, and the ads won't be as abrasive. So that also goes to explain kind of why we chose those 3 leagues. As I mentioned earlier, they have limited time outs. So it keeps with the Netflix brand and allows us to keep our ads limited while still creating revenue off of it. All right, now Alyssa's going to fill us in on what's going on today.
So our second idea was to add the news piece as well. So first of all, I want to discuss why it makes sense for Netflix to get into the news. So currently, Netflix does not offer a piece of live content or the option of, and so we wanted to get into that, and many of our competitors do offer that. So we need to find a way to remain competitive with our competitors. So this brings that aspect to it. And then also, especially here in the United States, the news segments have become more partisan, especially under new administration. And so this offers Netflix the ability to offer its subscribers a non-biased source of news where they can get their daily world news. And then it also opens them up to a new clientele, that those who are more interested in live streaming or just news in general. So it gives them the access to those, tap into that new clients. And then also with their acquisition of ABQ Studios, the big cost is already taken care of with that acquisition, and they're already paying that cost. So the production site is taken care of, and as well as the production equipment that goes along with having a new studio. And so they have the space for it in that regard. So when looking at how the money that we're gonna be getting from this, similar to the sports, we're gonna be doing sponsorships. So starting with the lowest tier is the bronze package, and this is gonna be $4,000 per week. And we found this price because we found it very similar to like a radio ad because it is verbal mention. And then we also looked at product placement. So when we researched that, radio ads can range anywhere between $500 to $5,000 per week, depending on what location you are. And so we found it a fair price to rank it as $4,000 because we are international, and we have such a broad broadcast to many people in the market, as well as giving them the visual aspect of it as well that you don't get through radio. So for the broad package, you would get your name on our thank you page, and this would have 15 spots total. So like Clark said, and very similar to the sports, you would be able to have your icon there and a link to your page. And then as well as our silver package, in addition to the thank you page, you would get with our sports segment, it's going to be offered in our news. So it's going to be entertainment, finance, political, and then current events. And so today's current events are brought to you by, and then your logo would be the segment. And then our final package, you can only have one of these per week, which would be $6,000, and you will be our broadcaster sponsor of the day. So today's broadcast is brought to you by, for example. So how does this affect our bottom line? Like I said, the main cost is taken care of with the production site, but we also have to staff to run the production news. So we estimated about 2 news reporters, and we came out to and all these staffing. So we came out to about a little over $600,000. And then when we looked at the revenue, we came up to about a little under $3 million, for a total profit of $2.3 million in revenue. And then this gives you a mock-up of what the news feed will look like. Very similar to the sports, but a daily news content would be released at 6 a.m. each morning, recapping the previous day's news. And then is also an archive of news that people can go back to if they want to. And now I'll pass it on to Ariane to discuss issue 2.
Yeah, so as mentioned before, our second issue is low corporate level diversification. This is an issue because our competitors like Hulu have live streaming things like sports and entertainment, and then they're also partnered with other companies like Spotify, so they have a wider diversification than we do. The same goes for Amazon. They have Amazon Prime, their technology, and then all these other things that they do. So they are a lot more diversified. And so if their streaming doesn't go well, they have other revenue streams. So now Christian will talk about our goals.
Again, like Clark said, we kind of wanted to set up a little tree for you to kind of see what our vision was going into this, starting with our goal, which because Netflix isn't that as diverse as their competitors, we have to create new revenue streams for them to have. And in doing so, we want to look at what Netflix currently is at. Right now, like Lisa said earlier, they're operating under that single business area where actually 97.7% of Netflix's revenue comes from streaming. The other 2.3% or whatever is from the DVDs that they still sell. So we want to move this. We want to move over to kind of a dominant business strategy. We want to go to that 70 to 95% range so that Netflix has some flexibility in what they kind of do. So to do this, our strategy is kind of through acquisitions and partnerships, we want to be able to create those new revenue streams. And we kind of came up with 3 different ideas. Number 1 is something that we would call Netflix Live. So Netflix would purchase buildings in certain cities where they can actually have live comedy shows, host events, concerts, different things like that, and use their brand recognition to bring people in for those kind of things. Next was we talked about purchasing a company called SteelSeries. SteelSeries actually is a gaming peripheral company that makes like mice, keyboards, headsets. So with all that screen time going on, if Netflix isn't something they're doing, if they can get into maybe the hardware kind of aspect, it's a way that they could get that different revenue from that. The last one we talked about is partnerships, obviously. So creating something with a company like T-Mobile where all their clients can get a benefit to a Netflix package because of their phone package, something like that to kind of get those more customers watching our software and things like that. But for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to focus on the Netflix Live aspect. So this is kind of what in our brain, what an idea kind of looked like, these Netflix Live ideas. But first we want to look at the matrix of like, what is this kind of live cable television online streaming look like, as well as live events and pre-recorded events. So obviously, looking at what kind of just came up on that picture, NFL obviously is a live event that's on cable television. You have shows like The Big Bang Theory, which is on cable television but are pre-recorded. Netflix currently is in this kind of bottom right quadrant where online streaming and pre-recorded events are, but we want to move up to here where we can have live events and move towards this kind of NFL kind of atmosphere where you can still stream it on Netflix's software, but you can also go view that in person, have that kind of experience. So in doing so, we came up with Netflix Live events. So what kind of things can we do? Number 1, stand-up comedy. We have great partnerships with comedians I'll go through kind of later that we can kind of partner with and have them do shows. Esports events. This is a great opportunity because esports is different. You don't need a playing field. You need a stage where people can sit and just broadcast of what they're doing on the computer screen. So it's an easy way in an arena like this that we can accomplish that. Another one, concerts. You can have live concerts in a venue that we have, or theatrical performances. So for example, the stand-up comedy industry is a 12.7 projected growth through 2023. So we see that as something that's big because of our partners, Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, Amy Schumer. People we're already kind of partnered with can come in and do these shows and get those live audiences to come in and watch it. Esports, as you can tell from this chart, esports is projected by 2021 to be the 2nd most viewed sport in the United States. This is a great opportunity because it's starting to grow now that Netflix could host these events and have people come to watch them. Another one, concerts, 3.3 annualized growth through 2022. This is because people like our generation that like that concert experience. It's another way that we can do these kind of things. For example, Coachella last year actually hosted live streams of their concerts and brought in 9 million viewers for people that actually weren't there. So that's a big opportunity, especially because of 28.6% year-over-year growth. Next, theatrical performances. NBC's live broadcast of Sound of Music drew 18.6 million viewers. So if we are able to do a live event and then stream it, we think that can bring in more customers to create those different revenue streams for our company. So next, I'm going to pass it on to James. He's going to give you more of a kind of live look into where we thought maybe these locations might be, what a building might look like, those kind of different things.
When it came to considering locations for Netflix Live venues, we looked at cities that are growing quickly. We focused on Nashville, which is one of the fastest growing cities in the country, Sacramento, which is the fastest growing city in California and also close to our home base in Los Gatos, and Austin, Texas, which is not only one of the fastest growing cities in the country, but also one of the best live music and entertainment scenes in the nation. We're going to focus on Austin for this presentation. Our business plan for Netflix Live Austin is to create an intimate, multi-purpose venue that can host live events. Our target audience is going to be young professionals. Key features of this venue are going to be a multi-purpose stage, versatile seating, full-service bar, and technological infrastructure to live stream and record select events. This is the building that we've selected. This is just the layout. We're going to have a stage in the corner, VIP seating, general seating, a green room, bathrooms on the first floor, and then on the second floor, a mezzanine seating, more bathrooms, and a bar area. This is where it's located within Austin. It's a mile from downtown, and if we zoom in closer, you can see it's in one of the busiest restaurant and bar streets in Austin, so that gives our guests a great opportunity to eat and come to our shows afterwards, and also it increased the likelihood of foot traffic coming in. We're working with 7,500 square feet. The most important aspect is the 6,000 seating and standing room. We use this number with the help of an event planning app to calculate our capacity for different event types. For example, live music is mostly standing, so we can get about 1,000 people into that building. For concerts and for theatrical performances and stand-up comedy, it's a little bit less because you're seated, so 750 each. Esports is a little different. You may have different booths going on for vendors, and also multiple stages. So we booked for about 500, and then miscellaneous events will be things like corporate galas or wedding receptions, anything else that needs to be hosted there. So we booked about 100. Our goal is to create an atmosphere that is similar to Moody Theater, which is the current live music venue in Austin. It holds 2,700 people, and also Hilarities, which is a 400-seat comedy club in Cleveland. We want to combine these two elements in our exclusive multi-purpose venue, and also have the capability, which they don't have, to record and live stream these events to viewers outside of the venue. In terms of finances, we made some assumptions. We're going to assume that we can fill to 75% capacity for all of our events, and these are the number of events per year for each category and the average ticket prices. We use these to calculate our ticket revenues per year, which were these, and we got a total ticket revenue estimate of $4.1 million. We're not going to offer food because we're in a heavily trafficked and established restaurant area, but we will be serving alcohol, and we calculated this estimated annual revenue from alcohol using average consumption and prices in Austin, Texas. That brings our total revenue to $6 million. In terms of expenses, initial investment, we're going to do $3.8 million for the building, renovate it with $1.1 million. We really want to make this space the best space that we can get, and then we also have equipment, working capital, and licensing and fees for a total initial of $5.1. And then we have annual expenses: the cleaning, utilities, salaries, talent booking, office administration, and alcohol. All of that brings our annual expenses to $3.8 million, and our total annual revenue to $6.6 million. So a total annual profit of estimated $2.25 million. So if we take our total annual profit of about 2.25 and look at our starting expenses of 5.1, that gives us an estimated payback period of about 2.3. Now you may be thinking, where is this money coming from? Netflix currently has an $8 billion production budget. We're going to take part of that and dedicate it exclusively to Netflix Live events. Additionally, in terms of the numbers, these are rough estimates of what could be in the future. We understand that moving into a new business, we're going to experience losses early on. We're willing to accept those losses and embrace them because the goal of Netflix Live is to prepare us for bigger and better things in the future.
Right. And like James said, this is kind of a short-term goal. We want to kind of look in the long term with something that we think Netflix can do, which is something like creating their own large venue space and bring those very large crowds and sell out those arenas. And that's when you actually make that new revenue stream and that money, because they can start doing things like having the Netflix Fiesta Bowl, host a college football game every year and get money from that, or host something like Netflix Film Fest, where people from all over the world can come in, share their productions, share their stories that they make, and make these things come to happen in one place. I think Netflix has the capabilities because of their recognition and because of the money to be able to do this. So overall, with these recommendations, I think that Netflix can create these new revenue streams, even though the competitors are kind of pulling things that they have. And if you enjoyed this presentation, we'd like you to give us a thumbs up. And we recommend, after any questions, to watch the Nordstrom analysis and Disney analysis next.
I've got 40 minutes and 3 seconds. It's a way to pull it through. That was impressive. It's okay, 3 seconds.
Making me nervous.